Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Caleb Rourke. I'm 47, and until last October, I was the senior account executive at North Bend Strategies in St. Louis. I didn't leave voluntarily. I was fired. Not because I missed quota. Not because of scandal. But because, as the new VP of Sales smugly put it, I lacked the hunger for the company's future vision. Hunger. That word sat with me as I stared across the glossy walnut conference table at Jordan Fletcher, the man who slid my termination letter toward me with all the warmth of a tax collector. 6 months into his tenure, Jordan had already made waves. Fancy suits, louder meetings, all bark, no results. A corporate show pony. But he knew how to play the game. He was hired to shake things up and push performance. Somehow, that translated into dismantling what I'd built over the last 9 years. 40% of the company's revenue. That was my number. I was the rainmaker. Not a self-proclaimed one, but the kind of executive who logged 60-hour weeks, flew coach for client dinners, memorized children's names, anniversaries, business cycles. I didn't just sell contracts, I sold trust. And now I was disposable. Jordan's expression didn't change as I skimmed the document. I wanted to flip the table. But instead I smiled. Quietly. I appreciate the opportunity, I said. I packed 9 years into a cardboard box and walked out. That walk through the glass lobby of North Bend wasn't what you'd expect. No dramatic scenes. No shouting. Just clarity. Like someone pulled the curtains on a long con I hadn't realized I was a part of. I passed the CEO, Edward Lansing, on my way to the parking lot. He nodded like he didn't know what just happened, like I was just another name, not the guy who landed the Montgomery deal that saved us during COVID. He'd know soon enough. When I got home, I poured a glass of bourbon, set my phone face down, and stared out the window. My wife, Claire, was out of town visiting her sister. The house was empty, still, like it knew something had changed. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Harold Denton, one of my biggest clients at Capstone Energy. Dinner Thursday confirmed. Looking forward to discussing contract renewal. He didn't know. None of them did. Capstone's contract alone was $1.3 million annually. There were others, 10 more just like it. Together, those accounts made up almost half of North Bend's gross revenue. And all of them had been built on my word, my face, my commitment. Not Jordan's pitch decks. Not North Bend's branding. What? But North Bend had been slowly preparing to cut me loose. First, they restructured my commission. Then they reassigned my assistant. Suddenly, I needed managerial approval to fly out for meetings I used to handle on autopilot. A death by 1,000 corporate cuts. The next morning I made 3 calls. Not to complain. Not to vent. Just to inform. Harold, Tasha from Brexler Corp., Marv at Halford Investments. Each conversation was short and professional. I wanted to let you know I'm no longer with North Bend as of yesterday. The silence that followed each statement was deafening. What happened? They asked. The company's moving in a different direction, I replied. They understood. Before I hung up, Harold asked the question that told me everything I needed to know. Wherever you land, Caleb, that's where we'll be. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was worried. Because I was planning. They thought they had ended something. But what they didn't realize was this. They'd just given me every reason to build something better. And I knew exactly where to start. After the calls, I sat in my home office, still in yesterday's suit, tie half loosened, bourbon glass untouched. That's when the silence hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just the job I lost. It was the rhythm of my life. For 9 years, I lived by client calls, Q3 projections, CRM dashboards, and frequent flyer miles. My calendar wasn't mine. My time belonged to North Bend. But now, my phone didn't ring. My inbox stayed quiet. For the first time in nearly a decade, I wasn't needed. I wandered into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Empty. Claire wouldn't be back for 2 more days, and the house suddenly felt like a cavern. Our golden retriever, Max, padded in and sat at my feet. His tail wagged once, then stilled as if he too sensed something was off. I sat down on the floor beside him. I gave them everything, I whispered. And that was the part that stung. I'd missed school recitals, anniversaries, and even the funeral of a close friend, all because of North Bend. Because I believed I was building something permanent, something loyal. Something that would take care of me like I took care of it. But loyalty in business? That's a fairy tale. The next day I got a call from Brent Walters, my old mentor. We hadn't talked in years, but he heard through the grapevine what happened. They let you go? Are they insane? He barked over the line. I guess I wasn't hungry enough, I said. Son, you built the pantry. That cracked a smile. Brent invited me to lunch. Downtown. Some upscale place with white tablecloths and the kind of quiet where people closed million-dollar deals over dessert. I almost didn't go. I wasn't ready to smile, to explain, to spin the narrative into something less humiliating. But I went anyway. Brent leaned in after our food arrived. What do you want to do next? I don't know, I admitted. He nodded. Then let me ask you something more important. What do you never want to do again? That stopped me cold. I didn't want to chase promotions that meant nothing. I didn't want to build other men's empires while being disposable. I didn't want to be invisible the moment I became inconvenient. I want to own what I build, I said. Brent smiled. Then let me show you something. After lunch, he brought me to a small office space 2 floors above the restaurant. Sparse. Clean. Empty but full of potential. He pulled out a key. My son's been trying to lease this out, he said. But something tells me you might need it. I stared at the space. It was nothing. And it was everything. I had no logo. No staff. No name. No business plan. But I had something Jordan would never have. Trust. And that, in this industry, was everything. That night, I logged into my old personal CRM. One I used before joining North Bend. A relic from my freelance days. And I saw it. Over 200 names. Clients, vendors, partners. People who'd answered my calls on holidays. Who texted me before big presentations. Who knew my daughter was afraid of thunderstorms and that I drank my coffee black. North Bend had their contracts. But I had their loyalty. Still, I wasn't naive. I knew they'd try to stop me. Intimidation. Legal threats. NDAs. Corporate muscle. That's when I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. My contract. I pulled it from my filing cabinet, dusted off the folder and flipped through. And there it was. Right in black and white. Non-compete void upon termination not initiated by employee. My hands trembled as I reread it. I hadn't quit. They had. And that meant I was free. Not just unemployed. Free. That night I didn't pour bourbon. I brewed coffee. I stayed up until 3 a.m. mapping out everything. Clients. Contract renewal dates. Key influencers. Decision makers. By sunrise, I wasn't just a man licking his wounds. I was building something. They took my job. But now I had a mission. 3 days after I was fired, I received an unexpected call. From Rosa, my former executive assistant at North Bend. We hadn't spoken since she was abruptly reassigned to accounting 6 months earlier. At the time, HR claimed it was part of a realignment, but we both knew better. She'd been my right hand for 5 years. She knew my clients better than the CRM system did. Now her voice was tight, nervous. I probably shouldn't be calling you Caleb, she said. But, you need to know something. I leaned back in my chair at Brent's small borrowed office. Talk to me. She hesitated. Then, they didn't fire you because of performance. That was just the cover. There's a deal in the works, an acquisition. My blood went cold. An acquisition? Yes. A private equity firm, Craveston Capital. They've been in negotiations with North Bend for 2 months. I stood up, pacing now. Why me then? Why fire me? Because Craveston made it clear, she said. They only wanted scalable assets. That meant eliminating anything that looked like a key man dependency, and you were at the top of that list. It clicked. I wasn't just a high earner. I was too powerful. My client relationships weren't company-owned. They were personal. Non-transferable. And in an acquisition, that's a liability. Jordan Fletcher was brought in to clear the decks, she continued. To make the company look like it didn't rely on any one person. Especially not you. So it was never about performance. It was about making me disappear so the deal could go through cleanly. Rosa, I said slowly, did they try to meet with any of my clients without me? Silence. Multiple, she said. They brought in people from Craveston to sit in on strategy sessions, but the clients were told they were just consultants. You weren't copied on any of it. I felt sick. So while I was flying out to client dinners, negotiating renewals, bending over backwards, they were planting seeds to replace me in secret. They smiled in my face while laying the foundation to erase me. After I hung up with Rosa, I sat at my desk, staring at nothing. My chest burned with rage, but also something sharper. Purpose. This wasn't a petty dismissal. It was a corporate betrayal. They used me to build the firm's value, then discarded me so they could sell it clean. But there was a flaw in their plan. They underestimated how deep my roots ran. I opened my laptop and began digging. By midnight, I'd confirmed the rumors. A Craveston Capital affiliate had filed a preliminary notice with the SEC about acquiring a regional consulting firm valued at $70 million. The description matched North Bend perfectly. If the deal went through, Jordan would walk away with a golden parachute. Edward, the CEO, would quietly retire. And I was supposed to fade into silence. The next morning, I called Harold Denton again. "Did anyone from North Bend introduce you to someone named Thomas Levy?" I asked. There was a pause. "Yeah," he said. Said he was a strategic advisor. Asked a lot of questions. Wanted to know how automated our relationship with North Bend was. Did he mention me? Barely. Said the company was undergoing a leadership realignment. Told me it wouldn't impact our service. Harold snorted. Guy didn't even know our Q4 needs. I ended the meeting early. So there it was. They were trying to transfer client relationships into data points, convert handshakes into checkboxes. But trust can't be digitized. And I wasn't done. The next call I made was to Luann Park, my former in-house legal contact. She was now with a boutique employment law firm, and she owed me a favor from way back when I helped her husband land his first big commercial real estate deal. I explained everything. The firing. The Craveston move. The silent client meetings. "Do I have any legal grounds?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. "Maybe," she said. "But that's not what you should focus on." "What do you mean?" "You were their edge. Not a liability. If you start pulling accounts, they'll implode before Craveston even signs the paperwork." She was right. It wasn't about suing. It was about leverage. That night I updated my spreadsheet. Every major client. Contact dates. Contract renewal windows. Personal notes. It was like staring at a blueprint of their destruction. North Bend had tried to erase me from the picture. But I still had the brush. And I was about to paint a very different ending. By the end of the week, I was running on adrenaline and black coffee. I had 2 notebooks, one for legal notes and one for the plan. The plan that would slowly, silently get North Bend from the inside out using the very thing they tried to erase. Me. I wasn't going to burn bridges. I wasn't going to badmouth anyone. I didn't need to. Because I had something more powerful than rage. Reputation. In our line of work, contracts are just paper. What really matters is the feeling clients get when you pick up the phone at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. Or when you show up to their daughter's fundraiser. Or remember their company's founding date better than they do. Jordan Fletcher didn't have that. But I did. My first step wasn't reaching out to every client. No. I started with the ones I trusted most, the ones who'd walked through fires with me. People like Harold Denton, Capstone Energy, $1.3 million per year. Tasha Brewster, Brexler Corp., $880,000 per year. Marvin K., Halford Investments, $950,000 per year. I met each of them in person. No pitch decks. No big asks. I just explained the truth. I'm no longer with North Bend. It wasn't my decision. But I'm starting something new. And I'll only do it if I can give clients what they never got over there, real partnership. Every single one of them asked the same question. Where do I sign? That was the start. Within 10 days, I had verbal commitments from 8 companies, representing nearly $4.5 million in annual contracts. But I didn't stop there. I called Brent, my mentor, and told him it was time. We needed to officially form a company, a consulting firm that was lean, client-focused, and scalable. I had the client base. He had the legal and financial infrastructure. We called it ForgePoint Partners. I wasn't trying to build a corporation. I was building a weapon. But even weapons need precision. The timing had to be perfect. If I moved too early, North Bend might recover. If I waited too long, they might sell the company and cash out before the damage was felt. So I called Rosa again. Rosa, I need you to keep an eye on Craveston's interest. Are they still planning to close the deal? She lowered her voice. End of the month. That's their internal goal. Everything's moving fast now. Perfect. I had 18 days. 18 days to move enough clients out from under them, quietly, that Craveston would pull out at the finish line. Meanwhile, I had my new assistant, Noelle, building out systems. Not fancy ones, just tools that would make my transition for clients seamless. Dedicated portals. Custom dashboards. 24-hour onboarding turnaround. Clients wouldn't feel a thing. They'd blink and realize the service just got better. Then came the hardest part. The emotional purge. One night, around midnight, I opened an old folder on my home laptop labeled, North Bend Wins. Inside were photos, emails, videos, celebrations. The day we landed the Henderson account. The ribbon cutting for our downtown expansion. The handwritten note from Edward that said, "This company is what it is because of you." That one hurt. Because now I knew it was all a lie. They didn't just fire me. They used me. They drained everything I had, and when it became inconvenient to be loyal to me, they tossed me to the curb to please the next round of investors. That night I deleted the folder. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. The next morning I received an email from Craveston Capital. It was a generic BCC message sent to several client companies. Read. "We are excited about our upcoming partnership with North Bend Strategies and look forward to enhancing your service experience with new innovations and resources." That was my final confirmation. They weren't just replacing me. They were trying to repackage what I built under their name. But they forgot one thing. Trust doesn't come with a new logo. It comes from years of showing up. I made a new list. Final call to Tasha. Contract signed with Harold. A Marvin's team training scheduled. Press release draft for ForgePoint. Transition triggers timed for day 16. By the time I was done, North Bend wouldn't just lose clients. They'd lose credibility. They wanted a clean exit. I was going to give them the messiest non-compete collapse they'd ever seen. Not through lawsuits. Not through gossip. Through results. Day 16. I was sipping coffee in ForgePoint's tiny two-room office when the first call came in. It was Harold Denton, and he didn't waste time. Just submitted our official termination to North Bend. Effective immediately. Told them we're moving with you. I didn't respond right away. I just stared out the window at the rising sun. One down. Minutes later, Tasha Brewster sent over a signed letter of transition, copied to her entire executive board. Then came Marv. Then two more. By 11 a.m., 6 clients had sent formal terminations. Each cited a different reason: change in strategic alignment, loss of key personnel, service concerns. But the real reason? Me. By lunch I got a text from Rosa. Emergency board meeting called. Craveston is furious. They'd noticed. They had to. $3 million in renewals evaporating in hours was not part of their due diligence. At 2:47 p.m. my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I picked up. "Caleb, it's Edward Lansing. The CO. The man who couldn't even make eye contact when I passed him in the lobby the day I was fired." He was chipper now. Almost friendly. "I was hoping we could chat," he said. "No pressure. Just catching up." "Sure," I said flatly. "Let's catch up. We've noticed some of your former clients are making changes. We're concerned." I didn't answer. Edward cleared his throat. "Craveston's still in play," he said. "But if we can't stabilize renewals, the deal might not close. Maybe there's a way we can smooth this out. Bring you back in as a consultant. Full pay. No hard feelings." I actually laughed. "Edward," I said, "you can't glue something back together after you set it on fire." Long pause. "I see," he said. Then, "I suppose we'll talk again when cooler heads prevail." I hung up. No rage. No gloating. Just a quiet, thrilling realization. They were bleeding. That night I opened a bottle of champagne with Claire, who'd just gotten back from her sister's. "I didn't think I'd ever see you like this again," she said. "Like what?" "Light." I hadn't noticed it, but she was right. I wasn't dragging myself to meetings I didn't care about. I wasn't apologizing to my kids for missing dinner. I wasn't chasing after promotions from people who didn't value me. I was building. And the house I was building would never be someone else's to tear down. The next day, Craveston Capital sent an official notice. "Our acquisition of North Bend Strategies is on hold pending further review of client attrition risk." That was corporate speak for "we're out." I texted Rosa. "How's Jordan taking it?" Her reply came back seconds later. Screaming. Firing people. HR's in meltdown. Looks like half of sales might walk. Alicia's already updating her LinkedIn. Perfect. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I had one more move. A quiet one. I bought the office next to North Bend's downtown headquarters. It was symbolic. But more than that, it was surgical. Every client who walked into that building and saw ForgePoint Partners would know exactly what had happened. And who was behind it. By day 19, I'd signed 10 new clients, 7 of which were previously locked into multi-year deals with North Bend. I didn't steal them. They left willingly. Because trust doesn't expire when the ink on a contract dries. It deepens. On day 21 my phone rang. It was Jordan Fletcher. I let it go to voicemail. He left a long message. Caleb, listen. I was just doing what I was hired to do. We all have our roles, you know? It wasn't personal. I'd still love to grab lunch. Talk this out. I saved the voicemail. Not for revenge. For remembrance. Because the man who fired me for not being hungry enough was now starving for relevance. 3 weeks to the day after I was fired, I got a call from someone I never expected to hear from again. Julia Rivers. My old assistant before Rosa, sharp as a whip, fiercely loyal. She left North Bend over a year ago for family reasons. But now she was back in town and working a temp gig at Cravestown Capital. She didn't even say hello when I picked up. Her first words? They lied to Cravestown. And I have proof. I froze mid-step in Forge Point's office. Slow down. What are you talking about? I've seen the internal docs, Caleb. North Bend submitted fabricated client retention projections to Cravestown, claiming 95% renewals over the next 18 months. But they knew half those clients were preparing to leave, I said. She continued, breathless now. They altered timelines, deleted warnings, even included your name on renewal pitches, after they fired you. That's fraud. I sat down slowly, heart pounding. This wasn't just betrayal. This was criminal deception during a multi-million-dollar acquisition attempt. If Cravestown ever went public or filed suit, this could obliterate North Bend's leadership. And suddenly I realized, I was sitting on a bomb I didn't even know I'd built. I met Julia the next morning in a neutral location, a bookstore cafe on the edge of downtown. She showed me the screenshots and internal memos on a password-locked flash drive. Client names listed with false renewal statuses. Projections padded with expected increases based on my influence, even after I was terminated. One file was labeled Client Confidence Index, Post-Caleb Risk Mitigation Plan. They'd known I was irreplaceable. They'd lied to their potential buyers to cover it. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know what they really did. And because I don't want to be part of it. I didn't rush to use it. I didn't leak anything. Yet. Instead, I called Luann, my employment attorney. This is more than a wrongful termination, I told her. She whistled as she read the files. This is acquisition fraud. And if Cravestown ever sues, they'll drag every North Bend exec into federal court, including Edward and Jordan. Can I be pulled into it? Not unless you leaked anything to influence the deal. Did you? No. I just built my own business. Then you're clean, she said. But if you wanted to make sure Cravestown sees this, well, that's a different conversation. I didn't need revenge through courts. I wanted poetic justice. So I made one call, to Travis Hender, an old contact who now worked on Cravestown's legal due diligence team. All I said was this. Travis, you should look deeper into the retention figures North Bend sent you. His reply? I've been hearing whispers. If you have anything concrete. I don't, I said. But I know someone who might. And I gave him Julia's contact, with her permission. I don't know what exactly happened after that. But a week later the headlines hit. Cravestown Capital officially terminates North Bend acquisition. Sources cite data integrity issues. And then a subheadline. Anonymous whistleblower hints at internal fraud, client deception. That same day, Edward resigned to pursue personal opportunities. Jordan was removed from his role. Rosa texted me from inside the chaos. Mass layoffs. People are crying. Alicia's gone. Nobody knows what's coming next. At Forge Point, we were onboarding 3 new clients that very morning. My new partner, Brent, walked into my office holding a newspaper. Congratulations, he grinned. You didn't just build something better, you left them in ashes. I didn't respond. Because it didn't feel like victory. It felt like justice finally reaching full circle. That afternoon, I got a message from Edward. Not a call. A handwritten letter delivered by courier. You were right. We treated you like a risk when you were the foundation. I hope someday you'll let me explain face to face. I've lost everything that mattered, and only now do I realize what I had. I'm sorry. I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer. Maybe one day I'd reply. But not yet. Because the real ending hadn't come. I still had one more chapter to close. 6 months after my firing, Forge Point Partners held its first full quarterly meeting. We were no longer operating out of a borrowed office with second-hand desks. We now occupied an entire floor downtown, ironically 1 block away from where North Bend's building still stood, though half the windows were now dark and the company name had been quietly removed from the signage. At Forge Point, the room buzzed with quiet energy. Tasha from Brexler Corp had just signed a 5-year strategic growth partnership. Harold had doubled his account size. Marv brought in 3 referrals that would carry us into new territory. But none of that was the real win. The real victory sat behind the glass doors of the conference room. People. People who believed in what we were doing. People who chose to be here. Every person in that room had once sat under North Bend's roof, wondering if they were safe, valued, or just next in line for replacement. Now, they were owners, collaborators, builders. And I was no longer the guy in the corner office waiting for someone else's approval. I was building something I would never let be taken from me again. After the meeting, I walked out onto the terrace. The city stretched out below me, golden in the afternoon light. Claire joined me, handing me a coffee just how I liked it, black, strong, steady. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "Feel what?" She smiled. "Closure." I thought about it. About Jordan's panicked voicemails. About Edward's handwritten apology. About the silence from North Bend's investors once the deal collapsed. About the fact that every major client who once signed with me at North Bend had now re-signed at ForgePoint. And about what I'd built. Not just a company but a culture that valued loyalty over leverage. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I feel it." Later that night I received a LinkedIn message. It was from Alicia Winters, the junior rep who'd once been forced to shadow me during a Travis Hender pitch, part of Jordan's plan to quietly replace me. Her message was simple. "I never understood what they took from you, until they did the same to me. I'm looking for a place where people matter. If ForgePoint is hiring, I'd love to be considered." I stared at the message for a long time. I could have ignored it. Let her sit in the wreckage of her choices. But I didn't. I forwarded her resume to HR. Attached a note. "Worth interviewing. She got caught in someone else's game. Maybe she deserves a real one." The next morning, I passed by the building that used to have the North Bend sign out front. A tarp now covered the logo. Their top floor, my old office, was empty. Rumor had it they were downsizing to a satellite office on the edge of the city. Their name was now a cautionary tale in financial circles. Their stock had dropped 40% since the failed acquisition. But I didn't gloat, because this was never about ruining them. It was about reclaiming me. A few days later, ForgePoint's board approved my promotion to full managing partner. Brent made the announcement himself. There are leaders who rise from ambition, and those who rise from survival. Caleb built this place not for power but for peace. And that's why we trust him with everything we're building. The room applauded. I didn't stand. I didn't need to. Because I'd already gotten what I wanted. Freedom. Not from a company. But from ever needing someone else's permission to matter. That evening, Claire and I sat at the dining room table, finalizing plans for our first family vacation in 8 years. No client calls. No missed birthdays. No half promises. My daughter walked in with a gift she'd made herself, just a framed quote on parchment. Read. "The best revenge is building what they said you never could." I placed it on the mantel beside a photo of the ForgePoint team. And I finally let out the breath I didn't know I'd been holding since the day Jordan slid those termination papers across the table. In the end, I didn't need to burn their house down. I just had to build something they couldn't compete with. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.